Georgetown Cafe was more than just another upscale coffee shop tucked away in the historic streets of Washington, D.C. For Maya Johnson, a 28-year-old waitress with warm brown eyes and an unwavering smile, it had been her sanctuary for 6 years. The elegant hardwood floors and crystal chandeliers spoke of old money and power, but Maya had learned to navigate this world with grace and determination. That autumn morning started like any other. The cafe hummed with its usual breakfast crowd, senators' aides hurriedly typing on laptops, Georgetown professors grading papers, and the occasional tourist who'd wandered in from the cobblestone streets. Maya moved with practiced ease between the tables, her black apron perfectly pressed, her notepad ready. "The usual, Professor Matthews?" she asked, approaching a regular customer who taught political science at the university. He nodded, barely looking up from his newspaper. Maya had mastered the art of being present yet invisible, a skill that had served her well in this establishment where discretion was as valuable as the imported coffee they served. The bell above the door chimed, its gentle ring cutting through the morning chatter. Maya glanced up, her practiced smile freezing as she recognized the tall, slender teenager who entered. Barron Trump, now 17 and almost as tall as the Secret Service agents flanking him, ducked his head slightly as he entered, clearly trying to avoid attention. The cafe's atmosphere shifted instantly. Whispers rippled through the room like wind through autumn leaves. Phones appeared in hands, their cameras pointed not so subtly toward the door. Maya noticed the slight tension in Barron's shoulders, the way his eyes darted around looking for a quiet corner. Karen Matthews, one of the cafe's most influential regulars and a prominent local business owner, straightened in her seat, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her coffee cup as she watched the scene unfold. Her presence at Table 7 was as regular as the sunrise, and her opinion carried weight with management. Maya took a deep breath, made a quick decision, and moved purposefully toward Barron and his security detail. "Good morning," she said warmly, speaking in the same tone she used with every customer. "Would you prefer our private alcove? It's quieter, and the view of the garden is lovely this morning." The relief in Barron's eyes was subtle but unmistakable. One of the Secret Service agents gave her an appreciative nod. "That would be perfect, thank you," Barron replied softly, his voice carrying a politeness that reminded Maya of her own son, Justin, who was at school working his way through 8th grade. As Maya led them to the secluded corner, partially hidden by an elegant room divider and lush plants, she could feel Karen Matthews' disapproving gaze boring into her back. The whispers grew louder, phone still recording. Maya positioned herself strategically, blocking the view of several cameras as she handed them menus. "Our house blend is excellent," she said, maintaining her professional demeanor. "And the kitchen just pulled fresh cranberry scones from the oven." She pretended not to notice as someone from Table 4 stood up for a better photo angle. Barron glanced at the menu, then at Maya's name tag. "Thank you, Maya," he said quietly. "It's nice to just be treated like a regular person sometimes." Maya's heart twinged with empathy. At 17, he shouldn't have to deal with such scrutiny. She thought of Justin, and how she'd want someone to treat him with kindness in a similar situation. "Everyone deserves a peaceful breakfast," she replied simply. As she walked away to put in their order, she could hear Karen Matthews on her phone, speaking in sharp, hushed tones. "Thomas, you won't believe who your waitress is fawning over right now." Maya's grip tightened on her notepad. She knew Thomas Bennett, the owner, well enough to recognize that this morning was about to become complicated. But as she glanced back at Barron, now relaxing slightly in his sheltered corner, she knew she'd made the right choice. Little did she know, this simple act of kindness was about to change her life forever, testing her principles, her resilience, and the very community she'd come to call home. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of tension and whispers. Maya continued her regular duties, serving other customers while keeping a protective eye on Barron's table. She noticed how he relaxed gradually, actually enjoying his breakfast instead of just enduring it. The Secret Service agents, too, seemed to appreciate the relative calm of their corner. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling of Karen Matthews' eyes following her every move, like a hawk tracking its prey. It happened as Maya was bringing fresh coffee to Barron's table. Karen Matthews rose from her seat, her designer heels clicking purposefully across the hardwood floor. She positioned herself directly in Maya's path, forcing her to stop abruptly, coffee pot still in hand. Maya, Karen's voice carried that particular tone of fake concern that Maya had learned to recognize over years in service. Don't you think you're being a bit obvious? This establishment has certain standards to maintain. Maya felt her cheeks warm but kept her voice steady. I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Matthews. Every customer deserves good service. She tried to step around Karen, but the older woman shifted slightly, maintaining her blockade. The cafe had grown quieter, other patrons pretending not to watch while recording everything on their phones. Through the corner of her eye, Maya could see Barron Trump watching the scene unfold, his expression a mixture of concern and resignation, as if he'd seen this type of situation too many times before. Your job, Karen emphasized the word with a slight sneer, is to serve everyone equally, not to play politics and create spectacles. She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. Some of us have been coming here for years, and we don't appreciate our morning coffee being turned into a circus. Around them, the whispers had grown louder, and Maya could hear the distinct sound of social media notifications pinging as posts and videos began circulating. Maya stood her ground, though her hands trembled slightly around the coffee pot. Mrs. Matthews, I've given Mr. Trump the same service I would give any customer seeking privacy. Nothing more, nothing less. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. Her job, her son's tuition payments, her dignity, all hanging in the balance of how she handled the next few minutes. The cafe's door chimed again, and Thomas Bennett strode in, his face set in grim lines. Maya's heart sank. She knew that expression. Karen had already been on the phone with him, and now he was here to handle the situation. The owner of Georgetown Cafe was a tall man with graying temples and an expensive suit, someone who prided himself on maintaining the establishment's prestigious reputation. Maya, Thomas called out, his voice carrying across the now-silent cafe. My office. Now. He turned to Karen with a deferential nod. Mrs. Matthews, I apologize for any disturbance to your morning routine. Maya carefully set down the coffee pot, her movements measured and deliberate. As she walked toward Thomas's office, she caught a glimpse of Barron Trump standing up, looking like he wanted to say something. But one of his Secret Service agents placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, shaking his head slightly. The walk to Thomas's office felt like a march to the gallows. Maya could hear the murmurs behind her, the soft clicks of phone cameras, the subtle rustle of people leaning in to whisper to each other. Karen Matthews had retaken her seat, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she sipped her coffee. Just before Maya entered the office, she heard Karen's voice carry across the room. It's about time someone addressed the help's behavior. Thomas's office was small but elegant, with framed reviews and certificates covering one wall and a large window overlooking the Georgetown streets on the other. He closed the door behind them, the soft click seeming to seal Maya's fate. Sit down, he said, not unkindly, but with a finality that made Maya's stomach clench. She perched on the edge of the leather chair, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Maya, you've been with us for 6 years, Thomas began, settling behind his desk. You've been a good employee, reliable, professional. But today, he paused, shuffling some papers on his desk. Today you've created a situation that I cannot ignore. Mrs. Matthews is one of our most valued customers, and she's not the only one who's expressed concern about your behavior this morning. Maya found her voice, though it came out softer than she intended. I was just trying to protect a teenager's privacy, Mr. Bennett. He's still a child, really? Would we treat any other 17-year-old customer that way, with phones in their face while they're trying to eat breakfast? But even as she spoke, she could see in Thomas's eyes that her words weren't registering. His decision had been made before she'd even entered the office. The morning sun felt different as Maya stepped out of Georgetown Cafe for the last time, her small box of personal belongings clutched against her chest. The termination had been quick, clinical, immediate effect were the words Thomas had used. Her final paycheck would be mailed to her. 6 years of service ended over a simple act of kindness. As she walked down the cobblestone street, her phone buzzed continuously in her pocket, social media exploding with videos of the incident. Someone had captured everything, from Barron's entrance to Karen's confrontation, and now hashtag Georgetown Cafe was trending. Maya's hands trembled as she unlocked her apartment door 20 minutes later. The small two-bedroom unit she shared with Justin suddenly felt more precious and precarious than ever. Her son's school photos smiled down at her from the wall, and her throat tightened. How would she tell him? How would she make next month's rent? She collapsed onto their worn couch, finally allowing herself to check her phone. The screen was flooded with notifications, messages from coworkers, news outlets requesting interviews, and hundreds of social media comments. Her hands froze over a message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Trump would like to speak with you." Before she could process that bombshell, another message popped up. This one was from Karen Matthews herself. "I hope you understand that actions have consequences, dear. Georgetown is a small community, and word travels fast." The threat was clear. Karen's influence could make finding another job in the area nearly impossible. Maya's head spun as she tried to make sense of everything happening. The incident had somehow transformed from a simple morning interaction into something much bigger. A knock at her door made her jump. Opening it cautiously, she found herself face to face with two men in dark suits. Secret Service agents, but not the ones from this morning. "Ms. Johnson," the taller one said, showing his credentials, "we need to discuss this morning's events." Maya's heart raced as she let them in, their presence making her small living room feel even smaller. The agent sat stiffly on her couch, seeming oddly out of place among Justin's soccer trophies and her thrift store furnishings. "First," the agent began, "we want to thank you for your discretion this morning. Not everyone would have handled the situation with such grace." His partner nodded in agreement, then added, "However, the situation has escalated beyond a simple cafe incident." He pulled out his phone, showing Maya a series of social media posts. The videos had gone viral, spawning heated debates about privilege, politics, and social justice. Some praised her as a hero standing up to elitism, while others accused her of political grandstanding. "Mrs. Trump has taken a personal interest in this situation," the first agent continued, watching Maya's reaction carefully. "She appreciates how you treated her son, like a normal teenager rather than a political statement." Maya sat quietly, trying to process everything. The morning's events felt surreal, like something happening to someone else. The agent's phone buzzed, and he checked it briefly before standing. "You'll be hearing from Mrs. Trump's office directly. In the meantime, be careful what you say to the media. This story is bigger than you might realize." After the agents left, Maya sat in the growing darkness of her apartment, watching the sun set over the Washington skyline. Her phone continued to buzz with notifications, but one new message caught her eye. This time from Thomas Bennett. "Maya, I hope you understand I had no choice. Karen Matthews sits on the board of 3 local business associations. She's friends with half our regular customers. But what you did, it wasn't wrong. Just expensive." The message ended there, leaving Maya with more questions than answers. A final knock on her door revealed a courier with a thick envelope. Inside, Maya found a formal letter on expensive stationery, bearing the Trump Organization letterhead. As she began to read, her hands shaking slightly, she realized that sometimes standing up for what's right could lead you down unexpected paths. The letter's contents would change everything, but first, she had to decide if she was ready for what came next. From her bedroom, she could hear Justin returning from soccer practice, his voice carrying down the hallway as he chatted with a neighbor. Maya quickly wiped her eyes and tucked the letter away. She had to be strong for him, had to show him that doing the right thing mattered, even when it came at a cost. Later that evening, after Justin had gone to bed, Maya sat at her small kitchen table, the Trump Organization letter spread out before her under the dim overhead light. The words seemed to shimmer on the expensive paper, an invitation to serve as the new community relations director for the Trump Organization's youth outreach program, with a salary that made her hands tremble. It wasn't just a job offer, it was a lifeline, a vindication, and perhaps most importantly, a chance to make a real difference. But as Maya reached for her phone to accept the position, a news alert stopped her cold. Karen Matthews was on the local news, standing outside Georgetown Cafe with Thomas Bennett. "This was never about politics," Karen was saying, her voice dripping with practiced sincerity. It's about maintaining the professional standards our community expects. Maya Johnson turned a simple breakfast into a political statement, making everyone uncomfortable. The camera panned to show a group of nodding customers behind her, all regulars Maya had served for years. Thomas Bennett looked uncomfortable, but spoke anyway. We've always prided ourselves on treating every customer equally. When any customer receives preferential treatment, it goes against our principles. Maya watched in disbelief as several other regular customers stepped forward to speak against her, people she'd served faithfully for years. The narrative was being rewritten before her eyes, turning her simple act of kindness into something controversial and calculated. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This time, when she answered, a familiar voice spoke. "Maya, this is Barron Trump." Her heart skipped a beat as he continued. "I'm sorry about what happened. I saw the news, and it's not right. Mom wants to meet with you tomorrow, if you're willing. We want to help make this right." The teenager's voice carried a mixture of guilt and determination that reminded Maya why she'd helped him in the first place. The next morning, a sleek black SUV arrived outside her apartment. Justin had already left for school, excited by Maya's promise that things were about to change for the better. The drive to the Trump Organization's D.C. offices was surreal, past Georgetown Cafe, where a small crowd of protesters had gathered, some supporting Maya, others condemning her. Social media had transformed her story into a symbol of something larger, a battleground for opposing viewpoints about privilege, respect, and human dignity. Melania Trump was waiting in a contemporary office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She rose gracefully as Maya entered, extending her hand with a warm smile. "Thank you for coming, Maya. What you did for Barron. It meant more than you know." They sat in comfortable chairs, and Melania continued. "But before you accept our offer, there's something you should know about Karen Matthews and Georgetown Cafe." Melania opened a folder on her desk, revealing documents that made Maya's eyes widen. Karen Matthews wasn't just a regular customer. She was part of a larger network of influence in Georgetown, one that had been using the cafe as a front for more than just coffee and scones. Financial records showed suspicious patterns, meetings that weren't just about business, and connections that stretched into darker corners of Washington politics. "We've been watching them for months," Melania explained, her accent more pronounced with concern. "Your interaction with Barron brought unwanted attention to their operation. That's why they reacted so strongly." Karen Matthews isn't just afraid of losing her morning coffee spot. She's afraid of losing everything she's built through that cafe. Maya sat back, stunned by the revelation. Her simple act of kindness hadn't just cost her a job, it had inadvertently threatened a carefully constructed facade. As if on cue, Maya's phone lit up with a message from Thomas Bennett. "Maya, we need to talk. There's more to this story than you know. Meet me at the old Georgetown Bridge tonight at 8. Come alone." Melania saw the message and frowned. "It's starting to unravel for them," she said softly. "But this makes you a target. Taking this position isn't just about a fresh start anymore. It's about standing up to something much bigger than Karen Matthews." Maya stared out at the Washington skyline, her mind racing. The choice before her wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about justice, truth, and the courage to stand up to powers bigger than herself. In her pocket, her phone buzzed again. A message from Karen Matthews. "Last chance, Maya. Walk away now, or you'll regret how deep this goes." Maya looked at Melania, her decision crystallizing. "What do you need me to do?" The old Georgetown Bridge cast long shadows in the evening light, its historic stones telling tales of countless secret meetings. Maya stood at its edge, her heart pounding as she checked her phone. 7:55 p.m. The Secret Service agents Melania had insisted on sending were hidden nearby, their presence both reassuring and nerve-wracking. The water below seemed especially dark tonight, carrying secrets of its own in its murky depths. Thomas Bennett arrived exactly at 8, his usual polished appearance somewhat disheveled. His tie was loose, and his hands shook slightly as he approached. "Maya," he said, glancing nervously over his shoulder, "I'm sorry about all this. I never wanted to be part of it." He pulled out a thick manila envelope from his jacket. "This is everything. Records of meetings, transactions, names. Karen Matthews isn't just a regular customer. She's been using my cafe as a front for years. But before he could hand over the envelope, a sharp voice cut through the evening air. Thomas, I'm disappointed. Karen Matthews emerged from the shadows, accompanied by two men in expensive suits. Her designer heels clicked menacingly against the bridge's stones. I thought we had an understanding about loyalty. Thomas stepped back, clutching the envelope tighter. Maya noticed how Karen's polished exterior had cracked slightly, her usual perfect composure showing signs of desperation. It's over, Karen, Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. We know about the money laundering through the cafe. The fake receipts, the mysterious meetings, all of it. Karen's laugh was cold and brittle. Oh, you think you know everything because Melania Trump showed you some papers? You have no idea how deep this goes. That cafe isn't just about money. It's about power, influence, secrets that could shake this city to its core. One of Karen's associates stepped forward, his movement purposeful. Miss Johnson, surely we can reach an arrangement. The Trump Organization's offer is generous, but we can double it, triple it. Maya felt a chill run down her spine as Karen added, think about Justin's future. Private school, college, opportunities you've only dreamed of. All you have to do is walk away. Thomas suddenly found his courage. No more, he declared, stepping toward Maya with the envelope. I've spent years letting you turn my family's cafe into your personal playground of corruption. It ends tonight. As he moved, Karen's other associate reached into his jacket. Maya's heart stopped, but before anything could happen, shadows detached themselves from the darkness. Secret Service agents emerged from their hiding spots, surrounding the group. Karen Matthews, a familiar voice rang out. Melania Trump stepped into the lamplight, her presence commanding attention. I believe it's time we had a proper conversation about Georgetown Cafe. Behind her, more figures emerged, FBI agents, their badges gleaming. Karen's composed facade finally cracked completely. You don't understand, she snarled, her voice rising hysterically. We protected people's secrets, kept the right wheels greased. This city runs on secrets. As the FBI agents moved in, Karen turned to Maya, her eyes blazing with desperate fury. You, she spat, a simple waitress. You ruined everything because you couldn't just serve coffee and keep your head down. Maya stood her ground, thinking of Justin, of Barron, of every person who'd ever been bullied by power. No, Karen. It ended because you forgot that even simple waitresses have dignity, and sometimes they have the courage to stand up to people like you. The next hour was a blur of statements and signatures. Thomas handed over his envelope of evidence, his hands steady now. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, still protesting about her connections and influence, Maya noticed how small she looked without her wall of power to hide behind. Melania appeared at Maya's side, watching the scene unfold. You know, she said softly, Barron told me something interesting about that morning at the cafe. He said you were the first person in years to look at him and see just a teenager, not a political statement or an opportunity. Maya turned to Melania, questions burning in her mind. What happens now? To the cafe? To everything? Melania smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. That, Maya, depends on what you want to happen. Sometimes the best way to fix a broken system is to rebuild it from the inside out. She pulled out another envelope, different from the job offer Maya had received earlier. We have a new proposition for you. One that involves not just a job, but a chance to transform Georgetown Cafe into something it should have been all along. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of Georgetown Cafe, its familiar facade now holding new promise. The morning sun caught the fresh gold lettering on the window. Georgetown Community Cafe, where everyone belongs. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd gone from fired waitress to owner and executive director in less than a season. The Trump Organization's proposal had been unexpected. Buy the cafe, transform it into a non-profit community space, and use it to launch youth mentorship programs while maintaining its historic charm. Inside, the changes were subtle but significant. The elegant hardwood floors remained, but the seating had been rearranged to create both private spaces and community areas. A new scholarship board hung beside the original reviews, displaying opportunities for local students. The same crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, but now they illuminated a space where high school students could get free tutoring, where community groups could meet, and yes, where anyone could still get an excellent cup of coffee. Justin bounded down the stairs from the new second-floor study space, his face bright with excitement. "Mom, Barron's here." Maya turned to see the familiar tall figure entering through the front door, this time without Secret Service agents crowding him. In the months since the incident, Barron had become a regular visitor, often spending afternoons helping younger students with their math homework or just being a normal teenager among peers who had grown used to his presence. "The usual spot?" Maya asked with a smile, already knowing the answer. Barron nodded, returning the smile as he headed to what had once been the controversial private alcove, now just one of many comfortable study spaces. As he passed the counter, several regulars greeted him casually. The novelty of his presence had long since been replaced by genuine acceptance. The bell above the door chimed again, and Maya looked up to see Thomas Bennett entering. Since testifying against Karen Matthews and her network, he'd found his own path to redemption, now serving as a business advisor for the cafe's youth entrepreneurship program. "Maya," he said, holding up the morning paper, "have you seen this?" The headline read, "Former Georgetown power broker pleads guilty. Karen Matthews faces decade in prison." Maya took the paper, scanning the article that detailed Karen's fall from grace. The investigation had uncovered a web of corruption stretching back years: blackmail, money laundering, political manipulation, all centered around the seemingly innocent cafe. Karen's morning coffee routine had been a cover for gathering dirt on Washington's power players, using their secrets to build her influence. The door chimed once more, and Melania Trump entered, elegant as always, but now a familiar presence. She'd taken a personal interest in the cafe's transformation, often bringing visiting dignitaries to show how a simple space could become a model for community change. "Good morning, Maya," she said warmly. "I thought you'd want to see this." She handed over an envelope containing the final paperwork. The cafe was now officially registered as a non-profit foundation, its future secured. As Maya prepared Melania's usual coffee order, a group of students from the local high school filed in, carrying textbooks and laptops. Among them was a girl Maya recognized from the morning of the incident. She'd been one of the ones filming Barron with her phone. Now she waved to him casually as she passed, heading to a study table without a second glance. The scene brought tears to Maya's eyes. This was exactly what she'd hoped for, a place where labels and status fell away, leaving just people connecting as people. Later that evening, as Maya prepared to close up, she found Barron lingering at his table. "You know," he said, looking around the transformed space, "that morning, when you treated me like a regular person, it meant more than you knew. Mom told me about your job offer that night, but I asked her to think bigger. This place," he gestured around the cafe, "this is what I imagined." Maya sat down across from him, touched by his words. "Sometimes," she replied, "the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness." Through the window, she could see Justin helping Thomas clean up, the older man patiently teaching him the proper way to balance the books. On the community board, a flyer announced the cafe's new scholarship program, funded in part by Karen Matthews' seized assets, a fitting transformation of what had once been used for corruption. As the sun set over Georgetown, casting long shadows through the cafe's windows, Maya realized that her story had become more than just a viral video or a scandal. It had become a reminder that standing up for what's right, even in small ways, could ripple out to create waves of change. The cafe that had once been a symbol of exclusivity and secret power now stood as a testament to something far more powerful: the simple truth that every person deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and kindness. The next morning, as Maya unlocked the cafe's doors, she smiled at the new sign hanging above the entrance. "Welcome all." Below it, in smaller letters, was the phrase that had started everything: "Everyone deserves a peaceful breakfast." If you enjoyed this story of courage, transformation, and the power of simple kindness, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Your support helps us continue bringing you these inspiring true stories of ordinary people making extraordinary changes.